What's some paranormal activity that you experienced? Reddit. Not me, but my best friends just told me and my boyfriend this yesterday at the hospital. A couple days before having complications, their little girl Summer, who is 3, goes up to my friend in the kitchen and says, "Mom, I can't wait to meet Madeline on Sunday." And my friend says, "Sunday? Why Sunday?" And she said, "Madeline is coming on Sunday." And my friend says, "Why Sunday?" Completely bewildered. Summer replies with, "Because Papa told me." Her papa is my friend's dad, who passed away in November. So my friend, being kind of creeped out, goes to her husband and tell him. He goes to Summer and says, "Summer, do you speak to Papa in the kitchen?" He was trying to throw her off, and Summer says, "No, I talk to Papa in my bedroom." Baby Madeline was born yesterday, Sunday, June 23rd, 3 weeks early. Shiver. My printer randomly started print something in the middle of the night. I nearly shat in my bed until I remembered I didn't have a printer. I was sleeping and then suddenly woke up as if someone was choking me. I opened my eyes and I thought I saw something hovering over me and I could not move or scream. That was a creepy experience. My grandmother, who was in a nursing home, came to me one night and told me she was at peace, that I could rest, and that she loved me. The phone rang, and a few minutes later my mother came to my room to tell me that my grandmother had died. When I was a kid, I had a dream where I saw my brother being dragged down the stairs by the grey aliens with big black eyes. Our rooms were side by side and I could see it happening out the door. They had him wrapped in a sheet with his head sticking out. In the morning, my brother said he had a dream he was being dragged down the stairs by aliens with big black eyes. True story. While renovating our really old house, we broke through a wall and found a very old wheelchair sealed into a closed off 4 foot x 4 foot room. It was super creepy looking, and one late night in my frosty backyard I heard a loud creak behind me. I turned around and nearly pooped my pants when I saw the chair sitting there facing me. I live in northern Nevada and frequent the old mining town of Virginia City. This place is like traveling back in time really. Well, there's this old hotel called the Old Washoe Club that's been turned into a bar with the upstairs and most of the rooms and stuff left abandoned. This is the only place I've ever been where I've ever felt I experienced some sort of paranormal something. As soon as you walk in you get the chills, goosebumps, and all that creepiness. People get shook sitting in their bus stools, and if you walk down the main hallway towards the restroom you get an immensely unsettling feeling. It's just a quite terrifying place to be. That being said, the bartenders are nice, and they make a strong drink. A few days ago, I was in New Mexico walking through a pueblo that has been abandoned for centuries. Bare ground with a ton of artifacts on it, pottery, projectile points, some bones. It's about 100 degrees outside and completely quiet / still. Very eerie. I pick up a piece of obsidian, probably a piece of a tool, and the wind starts howling. I drop it, say sorry, and start walking. Wind calms down right away. 5 to 10 seconds of very strong wind when stomping over a bunch of dead people seemed a bit creepy to me. Please note that I didn't collect anything from that site, just picked a few things up, looked at them, took photos and went on my merry little way. Everyone here has really big convincing stories. All that happened to me was my horse died, then the farm down the road's pregnant mare had a baby the same day and eventually we bought it. The horse had the exact personality and everything like my horse that died. So reincarnation? I don't know if this is even paranormal, haha. When I was 11 years old one summer, I took dance classes as a community center 2 blocks from my house. Since it was so close, my mom would just let me ride over to the center on my Razor scooter. On the way to my second class, I had sworn I saw a kid who was riding an extremely retro bike. Definitely not a model I had seen at the time in 1999. When I blinked, he was gone. So I was absolutely convinced I was just seeing things. My mind changed when this happened 6 to 7 more times over 4 weeks, and the kid would ride at the exact same time as me, but only appear for mere seconds and weirdly just disappear. Finally on the day of my last lesson I shouted across the street, "Please, leave me alone." It never happened again, and I've never had a paranormal experience after that, but if by chance spirits exist I still feel bad I yelled at one. Growing up there was always late night sounds from the kitchen, cupboards opening and closing, footsteps and such. The way the kitchen is laid out there is a window facing west, south, east and the door is on the western side. The bathroom is eastern of the kitchen, so as you walk out of the bathroom you can see in the eastern window to the kitchen. As a teenager I started to notice someone standing at the southern window, but as I passed the door they would always disappear. It definitely was not a shadow as you could see that they were looking south with their hands behind their back. One day when I was about 14 over 15 I said to my best friend, who stays the night most weekends, "You are going to think I'm crazy, but I think my house is haunted." She responded with, "Is it in the person in the kitchen that looks out of the window?" My mom passed away before my daughter started really talking. So one day I was washing the dishes and minding my own business and my daughter is sitting at the kitchen table, about 2 at the time, and she starts waving at the wall saying bye bye over and over and over again. I asked who she was saying bye bye to, and she said bye bye grandma. She had never said the word grandma before. It was either Nana or Sissy, and she just kept saying bye bye grandma. I love you. That got a little tear from me. On a vacation, me and my mother as well as my siblings decide to visit the house where my dad grew up. We check everything out, explore, etc. When it was time to go, curiously, the car doesn't start up. The driver we hired opens up the hood to the car to try and see what's wrong. In the living room I saw my mother in prayer on the couch. Eventually, after hanging out at the house a bit longer, the car starts working again and we leave. As we're in the car, my mother explains that she was praying and asking my grandmother for permission to leave because it was the anniversary of her death and she suspected she was preventing us from leaving. The driver confirms that he couldn't find anything wrong with the engine and he ended up not touching anything, and the engine started working again. So one day, about 2 to 3 weeks after my grandma died, coincidence or not, I was messing around with my Sony camera that I had at the time. I believe I was 15 or so, not too sure exactly, but I decided just to test how flash works. Long behold, after a couple of bursts, something catches my eye in the mirror, a black image which then suddenly disappears after a couple more. Flash is now trying to recreate this image. I could not, and asking guidance from my dad. He blames it on the fan to the right, but I have no idea how the distortion was not there with the first few shots. Appears, then disappears. I've tried debunking this for ages and just came to accept that something did decide to come and appeared there, but if anyone can explain this please do. Here is the image. Not sure if the EXIF data is still there, but I can try and hunt it down if anyone would like to investigate, and please do. I was working at a summer camp where I frequently loaded kayaks into a lake. One day I noticed that a rubber plug from one of the kayaks was missing. I made a note of it, but couldn't find it anywhere. No big deal really, and I quickly forgot about it. A month later, I wake up in bed, in a cold sweat from a fevered dream. Something hard and round is actually inside my pillowcase, digging into my skull. Lo and behold, the rubber boat plug. I don't even know. Well, I don't know if aliens are considered paranormal, but I had a very vivid dream where I was taken from my bed and beamed to a ship where I was studied by this man and a bunch of greys. I tried communicating by drawing on my arm with a pen, and then they used a beam and removed the ink from my skin, but still keeping the images intact. Then a bright light was flashed in my face and the next thing I know I wake up in bed with stomach pain at 330 am, and no more than 10 seconds after I woke up my dad rushed into my room because he heard someone leave the house, but everyone had been accounted for. My brother also had a dream that a man with big black eyes came into my room and took me in a Star Trek manner, like when you get beamed up. I've also started seeing energy from auras and I've been able to see some of the spirits that follow some of my friends, and it's a bit overwhelming sometimes. My place of work is haunted. I work in a salon. The tanning bed will lock itself. I've heard crashing sounds when nothing happened. I've saw the verticals blinds move exactly like someone raked their hand across it. I just got up and went to lunch at that point. I went on a fella trip to a cemetery in high school. I leaned on a tree, and I swear I could see what looked like a less full version of the cemetery, and that tree, but a wee bit smaller. It was someone's funeral. I saw a few women and men and kids. I can't remember the dead guy's name now, but when I snapped out of it, I looked at that grave, and it was his name. It was freaking weird. I thought my dad was standing and watching me from the hallway when I was in grade 7. He was sleeping downstairs. I was 14 and 5 months before this incident. I was diagnosed with epilepsy and my best friend's father passed. After that my mom was really overprotective to the point that I decided to take my life. I was crying while trying to decide how to do it. Then, in the midst of heavy crying, I closed my eyes, and for a moment my grandfather, who passed when I was 2, was sitting next to me. I told him all my frustrations and my depressive thoughts and he just smiled. This went on for 15 to 30 minutes. Then I went to my mother, calmed down, and hugged her, and I had decided not to take my life, and never mentioned to anyone I guess except for Reddit ever since. My mom was surprised, as I was heavily crying about a minute ago. TL, doctor, I decided to take my life, had a transcendental experience. Grandpa visited, which felt like 30 minutes, but was actually 2. I decided not to take my life thereafter.